Hello, my name is Arun John, and today I will take you through the steps of how you can easily backup and restore virtual machines using PowerProtect Data Manager or PPDM. Today we will create a crash-consistent backup policy, add assets, schedules, and retention period. We will then do an on-demand backup followed by restore of the backups using three methods. We will do a full restore of the virtual machine using PPDM UI. We will do an individual file restore using the search feature of PPDM. We will also do a file level restore from the vSphere UI. And finally, we will also do an instant access of the virtual machine by mounting a copy of the virtual machine backup onto the data domain. So let's get started. I've now logged on to the PowerProtect Data Manager UI. For the purpose of this demo, I've added a couple of things already into the PowerProtect Data Manager. First is the storage. This is where all the backups land. Now there are two data domains, DDV01 and DDV02. For the purpose of this demo, I'll be using DDV01 as our target. Then I've added protection engines. These are our external proxy server, which is a data mover which moves the data from the virtual machines to our target, which is our data domain system, using source side deduplication. And the transport method will be hot add. Then I've added a search engine as well. This enables us to search for our backups and then restore the data from the search results. What I've also done is I've added an SLA as well, which is the gold SLA. Now, what this SLA defines is, I've defined that any protection policy which uses the gold SLA should ensure that there is a backup at least once per day and between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. So I've already defined that, and we'll be using this SLA as we go through the demo. And what I want to also point out here is I've also added our virtual or vCenter as our asset source. So PowerProtect Data Manager will accept different asset sources, vCenter, file system, exchange, and so on and so forth. Again, for the purpose of this demo, I've added vCenter as the source. Very easy to add vCenter as the source. You just need to name the vCenter server, give the port number, and also we do have another option called as the vSphere plugin for PowerProtect Data Manager. If you choose to install that, it'll give the ability for the application owners, which is the VMware administrator, to actually go ahead and do their own backup and restores from their native UI. So I've already installed that plugin. So if you quickly go to my vSphere setup, for the purpose of this demo, I will be trying and backing up this machine called as Windows 03. So although I have added the plugin, which is the vSphere plugin for PowerProtect Data Manager, you don't see that plugin appear here, right? There is no backup option, there is no restore option, and that is because Windows 03 is not still added into the protection policy. So as soon as I add this client or the asset into the protection policy, you should see a small pop-up here which says backup. So we will go ahead and do that in our next step. Now, adding a protection policy is as simple as clicking on protection policy, and say add. We'll give the name Windows VM backup. The type is virtual machine because our Windows 03 is a virtual machine. I say next. We choose crash consistent backup. There's also an application aware for applications like SQL and Oracle. We'll choose crash consistent and we say next. And we add the host. Now there are different methods of adding host. One is manually, like the one which I'm doing right now. You pick on Windows 03, or you can also add the assets dynamically through predefined rules like the name of the virtual machines or the ESX host on which the asset is on, right? But here I'm going to choose it manually. We also have an option to exclude certain disks as well. You just need to click on manage exclusions, and then you can uncheck the disk which you want to, if you want to uncheck it, if you want to exclude it. So there's only one disk here, so I'm just going to keep that as is. To show you an example, if you click on Windows 01 and click on manage exclusions, there are two disks. You can choose to include or exclude from here. It's very simple. So we'll continue with Windows 03 and we say next. Here's where you define the retention periods, the time of backup, and how many times you want to backup in a day. So I'm going to say backup every day and retain it for 7 days. I'm going to define the target where the backups has to land, in this case DDV01. I'm also going to say apply retention lock so nobody can actually tamper with the data. And I'm also going to choose the SLA which we predefined, which is the gold SLA. So it's going to create a new storage unit on the data domain system, which is DDV01, with the name of the backup policy which we just created. So I'll show you that once we finish this, you will, when you log on to the data domain DDV01, you will find a new storage unit created with the name of our protection policy, which is Windows VM backup. Right, so we click on save. We say next. I'll also enable indexing so that we can search for our backups as well. So once we have done that, we click next. And we go through the summary and we click on finish. So what's PowerProtect Data Manager is doing is it's actually at the background creating a storage unit called Windows VM Backup on our data domain system. If I quickly log on to our data domain virtual edition, which is DDV01, you can see that PowerProtect Data Manager has already created that storage unit, which is Windows_VM_ backup for PowerProtect Data Managers to store all its backup. So what we'll do next is we will go ahead and we will run a backup on demand, which is our Windows VM backup. So all we need to do is we click on the protection policy and we say protect now. So it's going to ask whether if you want to actually go ahead and back up every asset inside that policy. We have only one asset, so we'll go and say yes. And the type of backup, it's going to be a full backup kept for 7 days. Say next, and we'll click on protect now. So it's actually backing up at the background. So if you go ahead and click on jobs, you should see the job being kicked off, right? So that's the job ID, which is ending with 7LV. We'll come back and check the status in a moment. While the backup is actually running in the background, I want to quickly show you the status of the plugin. If you remember on Windows 03, when we started off, there was no plugin activated on the Windows 03 machine. Now that the Windows 03 is added into the protection policy, we'll see what has changed. So we click on Windows 03, we scroll down, and if you look at the plugin, there should be a backup now button. See, so there's a backup now button, and very soon after the backup is completed, you should see a restore option as well. So again, we'll come back and check on that. We'll go ahead and now quickly check the status of the job. So click on jobs, and under protection jobs, if you look, the job ID ending with 7LV was completed successfully with a green tick box. All right. So we'll go ahead and check the status of the plugin on our vSphere UI as well. So if you look at the vSphere UI, now we have two other extra options, I should say. Previously we had only backup. Now because the backup is complete, we have an option to restore and also a file level restore as well, which is good. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a complete restore of our Windows 03 machine. So if I click on Windows 03, there are a couple of folders which have already pre-populated and it's been backed up as well. I have 3 folders: COVID-19, AstraZeneca, and Pfizer. So in the first recovery process, what we'll do is we will go ahead and mimic as if the Windows 03 machine failed, and we will go ahead and restore that from the backup copy. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So to restore a virtual machine, all I need to do is I need to come to the dashboard, go to recovery, click on assets, pick the asset which you want to recover, click on be copies, click on the data domain system, and I'll show you all the copies that asset has. Right, in this case we have only one copy. I choose the copy and we say restore. I'm going to choose restore entire virtual machine. You do have an option to restore individual virtual disks should you wish to. We'll say next. Again, we do have several options here. Do you want to restore it as an instant access, which I'll take you through in a moment? but here I'm going to choose create and restore to a new virtual machine. Say next. It's asking me to choose the virtual center, which is our default virtual center. We'll say next. I'm going to choose on which ESXi host do I want this restore to happen. I'm going to choose ESXi01 and say next. It's giving you an option stating that this is the required size you need to restore. So select the data store. I'm going to select the data store ESXi01 and say next. I'm going to give the new virtual machine as a name as restore of Win03 as the name. Restore of Windows 03. I'll keep all the other options as the default value and say next and click restore. So if you click on jobs, we should see that job has been kicked off now. So that is the job ending with VKB. Very soon, if you go to Windows 03 under ESXi01, you should be able to see our new virtual machine with the name Restore Windows 03 come up. If you click on the status of our job, which is a restore job, and the job ID ending with VKB is successfully completed, as you can see with the green tick. We should also be able to see that in here, you can see the virtual machine is being restored with the name Restore of Windows 03. What we'll do now is we'll quickly launch that Windows 03 and see if the three folders, which is COVID, AstraZeneca, and Pfizer, has been restored. So we'll go and say choose the Windows 03, and then we say launch remote console. This Control delete. We'll go ahead and put the password in. There you go. So all our folders are being successfully restored. So this shows that we have successfully restored Windows 03 onto a different virtual machine, which is restore of Windows 03. As a next step, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and try and do some individual file level restore. But instead of doing it from the PowerProtect Data Manager UI, we'll put on the hat of a vSphere administrator and try and do a file level restore from the vSphere UI. So we are now on the Windows 03 virtual machine. We'll go ahead and mimic the deletion or the loss of a file by deleting a folder. Right? For this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the folder called Pfizer. And then what I'm going to do is now I'm going to restore that from the UI of the vSphere. Right? So I'll go to vSphere and click on Windows 03, scroll down. I'm going to say I want to do a file level restore. So I click on file level restore. I choose a copy. Click on the PowerProtect data domain system. There's only one copy, so we select that. We say next. It's asking for the username and password of the virtual machine. So I'll go ahead and give that. I say start mount. So it's going to automatically, the proxy server which I spoke about is going to automatically install the agent which is required for file level restore. Therefore, when that agent is completely installed, we should be able to do a file level restore. So we'll wait for the backups to be mounted. So as you can see, the mount is complete. So we'll go and click on next. So here we can go ahead and try and pick our files, right? So it was Pfizer, so we'll go ahead and look for that file called Pfizer. It was on the desktop, so it should be under administrators. Click on desktops. So under desktops, you have all our 3 files. So the one which we deleted was Pfizer. We'll go ahead and select that, and we say next. So we go ahead and say restore to the original folder, which is again back on the desktop. We say next, and we say restore. So the restore operations has started now. So very soon we should see that folder called Pfizer back on Windows 03. So if you go ahead and click on Windows 03, there it is, the Pfizer folder which we originally deleted is back onto the desktop. So what we have shown here is we can actually go ahead and do a file level restore from the vSphere UI instead of actually going ahead and doing it from the PowerProtect Data Manager. Now what we will do next is we will try and see whether we can do a file level restore from the search functionality which PPDM offers. So we are here back on our favorite Windows 03 machine again to demonstrate search capabilities. What we will do is we will go ahead and mimic a deletion of 2 folders, right? So in our case we will delete the Pfizer folder and also the let's say COVID-19 as well. So we've deleted both of them. That is gone. So what we'll do is try and restore it from the PowerProtect Data Manager's search functionality, right? So let me log in quickly and logged into the PowerProtect Data Manager UI. Again, go to recovery and we say assets. So we pick our favorite client, which is Windows 03. I click on view copies and we see our single copy, right? So instead of clicking on restore, we will go ahead and say file search. So that opens up the search window. So we'll go ahead and search for our first file, which was COVID, right? So we'll go ahead and search for COVID, and there it is, our file. So we'll go ahead and add that to the basket. And then the next file was Pfizer. So go ahead and search for Pfizer, and there it is. It is one result found, and that's our Pfizer. So we go ahead and click that as well, and we say add. So we have 2 files which we can go ahead and restore. Again, this is from the search UI of PowerProtect Data Manager. And we say we go ahead and click both of those files, and we say restore. So I'm going to say restore to the original location. We do have an option to restore to an alternate location. Again, we do have to give the the username and password, so which we will go ahead and do. Go and verify that. So the verification is now complete. We go ahead and say next. Again, we know that there are 2 files which is going to be restored. Go and say finish. So now PPDM is trying to restore those 2 files, which is Pfizer and COVID, back to our Windows 03 machine. So we should have a job which is actually running, right? So we will wait for a couple of minutes and we'll see what is happening to our restores. So if you look at our jobs, our restore is complete. Now if you go back to our Windows 03 machine, both our folders should be on the desktop. There you go. So both COVID-19 and Pfizer was restored back to the Windows 03 machine through the search UI of PPDM. So in the final step, I want to show you a feature called Instant Access or PowerProtect Data Manager. So what Instant Access will do is it'll give you the ability to spin up a virtual machine from its backup copy on the data domain system. This feature is particularly important if you want to test your backups. Let's say if you want to do a quick file restore from the data domain system, you can do that. Or you can actually use that feature for many other purposes, like if you want to patch, if you're not very sure of the patch which you want to apply, if you don't want to do that on the production environment, you can spin up a copy of that virtual machine on the data domain system, apply the patch, and if it works, you can then migrate that virtual machine back into the production environment. So there are many features. So I'll quickly show you how to do that. So again, we're going to pick up the Windows 03 as the machine. So let's go back to our PowerProtect Data Manager. So before I show you that, I also want to show you the way we can actually automatically add virtual machine into a protection policy. If you remember, in the first step, we added the virtual machines manually. We can also do that automatically. Now I'll show you how that is done. Once you are in the PowerProtect Data Manager UI, you just click on Protection Rules and then say Add. Okay, so you pick the policy onto which this rule should be applied. So we have only one policy, which is the Windows VM backup. And at the moment, if you look at it, take a note of this, there's only one asset, which is the Windows 03 machine. So we go ahead and say apply this protection rule on this protection policy called Windows VM backup, right? And we give it a name. We say auto discovery. We say next, and we give it a condition, right? So what is the condition? So there are different options here. You can choose host name, OS type, power state, VM tags, which is important. Okay, for this exercise, I'm just going to say VM display name. Okay, so if the VM display name, I'll say contains instant. If the name of the VM starts with instant, I want to add that to our protection policy, which is Windows VMware Backup. Okay, so that's what I have done here. So let's save that rule. Okay, now we'll go and do our our instant access demo. So again, to do the instant access demo, we go back to recovery, we click on assets, right? I pick our client, I say view copies. Is again only one copy for us. We click on that and we say restore. Okay, this time we'll go ahead and say again restore entire virtual machine, which is what we want, but instead of restoring to a new virtual machine, I'm going to say I'm going to want instant access. So I want to mount the copy from on the data domain system. So I click on instant access and say next. So again, the vCenter server, the data center name, and click next. I'm going to try and see if I can go ahead and spin up this on ESXi 02. Right, so next. So we want to give that a name, right? So I'm going to give it a name called Instant Restore. So again, our rule which we previously created also had that name instant. So I'm going to I purposely named this virtual machine as Instant Restore. So we'll do that. We say next. We verify the ESX host, the data center, and once all that is done, we go ahead and click on Restore. And if you go to our job details, and that job has kicked. So we'll wait for a few minutes and we should be able to see that virtual machine, which is instant access, mounted from the data domain system. We'll come back to it in a moment. And there it is. Our job for instant access through our PowerProtect Data Manager UI is complete. So now if you log on to our ESXi or vSphere UI, you should be able to see that virtual machine. There it is, instant access or instant restore. So that virtual machine has spun up. In order to prove that that is in fact actually running from the data domain system, what we can do is, this was our original machine, which is Windows 03. If you look at our data store, it was data store ESXi 02. and the type was a VMFS file system. So we created a new virtual machine from a backup copy of the Windows 03, and that's Instant Store. So if you click on Instant Store, if you look at it, the data store is the EMC recovery, and also the file type is NFS, which proves that the data domain is presenting itself as an NFS data store to the vCenter, right? So that's in fact running from data domain. What we can also do is, now that we have a machine called Instant Restore, we'll go and see what's happening to our PowerProtect protection policy. If you remember, our protection policy had only one asset, but then we created a rule saying that any machine which is created with the name Instant should be added to that protection policy. Now that we have a machine called Instant Restore, it should be automatically added to our protection policy. So we go to our protection policies, there it is. There's a second asset which has been added. If you want to see it's in fact that machine, you can go and click on edit and say edit, and then we'll look at the assets inside that protection policy. So we'll go and search for there it is, that virtual machine, Instant Restore, and it is being automatically added to that protection policy, which is Windows VM Backup. Okay, now that we have shown you the instant access, what can you do with that? So well, we can do a couple of things. We can go ahead and see whether we can go ahead and extend that mount for a few more days, right? So now it's that virtual machine is mounted on the data domain system. We can say, okay, I want to do some more work on it, so I want that to be running for maybe a maximum of 7 days, right? So you can extend that mount on the data domain system for 7 days. Or once you have done whatever you want to do with that virtual machine on the data domain system, you can migrate that virtual machine back to the original data store. So what I also wanted to show is, if you go back to our vSphere UI and look at our machine, which is mounted from the data domain system, because it's automatically added into the protection policy through the rules, you should have a backup button in the PowerProtect plugin for vSphere. There it is. So we do have the backup button now. We also have a new button called as the extend session, which means to say you can not only extend the session from the PowerProtect Data Manager's UI, but also you can extend the mount session from the vSphere UI. So that concludes our demo. What we've done is we've gone through the various options of adding the assets into a protection policy. We have done an on-demand backup, and we have done a restore of the virtual machine from the PowerProtect Data Manager UI and also from the vSphere's UI. Thank you for listening.